and welcome to the job order contracting JOC Huddle number 31. You believe that, guys? Cynthia, 31 of these that we've done reviewing the contractor's
That's
proposal.
crazy.
I know. Today, of course, is February 28th, 2025. And let's take a quick look at our agenda. So we're going to be going over some very exciting announcements. We're going to be talking about reviewing the contractor's proposal, which is tough at times, but Cynthia and I will guide you through how to review a proposal correctly and hopefully save you some money. We'll have an open discussion where your questions hopefully will all be answered, but the more questions, the better. A lot of questions help other campuses, because a lot of us have the same problems, even at the chancellor's office when I'm doing JOC projects. I have a lot of the same problems that you guys do. So I'd be open to hearing not just problems, but success stories as well. And then we'll talk about our upcoming training, not only here at the CSU, but we'll talk about CJE as well. So without further ado, let's get things started. So very exciting. We're going to announce, we're actually going to award a bunch of JOC regional contracts coming up very, very soon. We're going to have some more in the north and quite a few in the south. So lots of JOC regional contracts coming up. So stay tuned to that. Carly, if you wouldn't mind throwing in the link to where these are all located so folks can find them. This will be updated in the next few days, weeks, and months to come, but be on the lookout for more JOC regional contracts. Pretty please. I should have put two pretties in here. Complete your JOC contractor evaluations. It's the last tab in the Gordian cloud, and I know I look at these a lot. Carly looks at them as we're trying to pre-qualify contractors. If you complete these, it only helps the system out. So please do what you can. I think it takes, I don't know, Cynthia, like 2 to 3 minutes to complete one of these? You can get it done pretty quick. So please get this done.
Think of it as your Yelp review for your contractor on a project. So if they did really great, we want to showcase that. But if they didn't do so great, we want to also note that so that Carly can use it for pre-qualification. So it's really, really impactful. Every little bit helps.
Right. And as you can see, on this one, I used Xbon for some Dumpke roof repairs. And one could say that they did an excellent job, but they actually only ended up with a 77% with me, just because that's the way that I was gauging it. It's no reflection on the campus at all. We're specifically using these for the contractors to really, like Cynthia was saying, get our own Yelp review, right, of the contractor and how they're doing in the regional system. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Cynthia for her big announcement. Cynthia?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Do you want to go over to the next slide?
Sure.
Because I love the visual.
Right. Is that the noise, right? Did I get it right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad you understood the reference.
All right, here we go. Ready, everybody? Here we go. Oh, look at that.
So CSU has been working really, really hard to every single year we have a goal of 80 million in order to keep our billing rate where it's at. Last fiscal year for the calendar 2023, CSU did fantastic with 86 million. So we were well over that mark. But this year we were a little bit closer at the finish line. So Gordian worked in collaboration with CSU to grant an extension for an extra week in order to meet that goal. And CSU did that very, very, very successfully. So you guys did the $80,963 or $963,000 and $599. So, and I know I jumbled that all up there, but all in all, you guys did over the 80 million mark, which is fantastic. We're really, really excited to share that with you guys. So no change to your billing rate. Everything can continue as is. I know there's already been campuses that are reaching out, asking for information on that. Nothing needs to change. JOAs can continue as they are. We are to stay at the 2.33% for another year. So a really huge kudos to all of the campuses who helped out in that push. I know that there was a lot of campuses who were really, really trying to get NTPs in within that last week that we were reaching out to. So really, really a huge pat on the back to everybody.
Cool. Well, Cynthia, thank you so much for that, and thanks for keeping with my Homer theme of this presentation.
You're welcome. I love a theme.
So let's get into it. So reviewing the contractor's proposal. I know a lot of you get proposals from contractors. Some proposals are good. Some proposals are challenging. That'd be fair to say, Cynthia. They're challenging to get
Yes.
Through. Yeah.
They're a little more creative than others, I like to say.
That's a good. That's a nice way to say it.
So the next slides that you'll see on here are actually excerpts from a broken out presentation that your account manager can do with you. So this is the condensed version of it. If you guys would like the more in-depth review of each of these 8 bullet points that are listed on here, reach out to your account manager and you guys can do a full 2-hour training session specifically on proposal review. So, but we're going to give you the highlight reel here. We're going to give you the condensed version just in the effort of time here. So a couple of the mistakes commonly that we see, this is like the most common things that we see in proposals, are number 1, adding labor hours to adding equipment, rounding quantities, double dipping, using a more expensive task, confusing unit measures, adding extra demolition tasks, or not using quantity discount modifiers. And we'll get into each of those in the next slides here. So the first one on here is adding labor hours. Most of our line items actually already are inclusive of labor. So there is no need necessarily for there to be an extra row for labor hours. Now, if the contractor is solely doing work where you guys are providing the material and the equipment for whatever reason, or if they're just doing the labor component, then there are labor hours that are available to you. But just know that all of our tasks, for the most part, will include labor within the task already. So there's not a need for extra labor hours. And that's a common one that we see all the time.
My favorite is when they add in flagman hours. How many people have actually seen our contractors adding flagman hours? And
on campus.
There's no work outside whatsoever. There's no equipment to be pulled in. There's a flagman randomly thrown in there. And you're like, well, what is that for pickup trucks? Like, what exactly are you doing? I mean, if the job does need it, we're doing a project this weekend at the Chancellor's office where we did need a flagman because we have a boom lift, and the flagman was needed to get the boom lift into place, which is justified. But a lot of times you'll see flagmen or extra hours thrown in there to pad their proposal, right?
Yep, exactly. And if you're ever curious to know or ensure that your line items do include labor, you can go into each of the line items and there's a checkbox that shows you the breakout of how much is associated to the labor, how much is associated to the equipment, and how much is associated to the material cost. So you can see the breakout of how much is being charged to labor within there. All right, next slide, please. Adding equipment. So again, for the most part, all of our line items already include equipment costs. Now, there are exceptions to that in the cases of larger equipment that will obviously need a separate line item for it. But for the most part, all of our line items are inclusive of the equipment necessary to do the task. Now, each of our line items will also specify that within each of the little summaries. So if you're within Gordian Cloud and you're reviewing a proposal, you can open up the line item and look at the little bubble icon that gives you a full description of what's inclusive of that task. So always keep an eye out for those because that'll tell you if they need to add any additional, like a crane, a dozer, those kinds of things that need to be augmented to the line item. So rounding quantities is a big one.
Yeah, I see this one all the time. Yeah. That 943 up to 1,000 is a bit much.
Yeah. So we use exact quantities when we measure here. Our line items already account for excess. So if a contractor is going to be painting 943 square feet, they should be charging you for the 943 square feet and not the 1,000. It's a very, very common thing that does happen in proposal, and it's just a common mistake, honestly. It's just letting the contractor know that, hey, we're using exact quantities for this, and they'll make the adjustment. Double dipping. This also goes back to the little bubble icon that I mentioned that shows you the description of the task, making sure that we are reviewing each of those to ensure that we're not double dipping within the line items. Each of those bubbles will tell you exactly what's inclusive of that line item. So making sure that when you're reviewing it, it's not inclusive of two different rows, right? So please make sure that you're reviewing those when you're reviewing your proposal. And using the most expensive task or more expensive.
This one's classic. Yeah.
And sometimes it's just, you want to give the contractor the benefit of the doubt. It may just be that they're looking at it and they just see a mortise lock set and that's what they select, right? We're giving the contractor the benefit of the doubt. But if you look at it, it's actually two different types of lock sets that are inclusive in here. Easiest thing would probably to pick the F07 because that one comes at a higher cost. But realistically, the scope called for the F01, passage/closet, mortise lock set. So making sure that you are double checking the full description of the line item so that they're picking the correct one. The system does allow you to go in and add in your own rows as you're reviewing the proposal. So if you see that the contractor included the wrong one, but you know which one the right one is, you can add it to the proposal for them and kick it back over to them for their acceptance. That's also available to you.
Yep. So I want to piggyback onto this real quick. So we've had contractors across the campuses and at the chancellor's office as well. They're like, yeah, but that mortise lock, that's not really the one that you're asking for. You're asking for this different one, and that's not in the book. So then that's where it's your responsibility to come back to the contractor and say, okay, first of all, show me why that's more expensive, right? Like actually show me how that's more expensive. You can talk to Gordian about adding that line item in, or you can have them explain in the comments, hey, this is pretty close, but we had to use something different. That's why we're going with a more expensive one. And that would just be, the contractor could add a comment line on that actual, in this case, in the mortise lock. So if the contractor wants more, just make them justify it and show their work, right? Because when you're audited, we're going to need to be justified and show our work about why we use the line item that might not be appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two different rules. There's an or equals rule within our big group that allows you to use the equivalent in value if there isn't the specific brand or make or model. But there is also non-pre-priced tasks available. So depending on the scope of the job, try and select which option benefits the scope more. All right, confusing unit of measures. I have done this myself, so I know this is something that happens very commonly. It's very easy to, when you're reviewing a proposal that has hundreds of lines, sometimes it's very easy to confuse this a square yard from a square foot, okay? It happens. So just double check those to make sure that your contractors are using the proper unit of measure and that, yeah, you will save a couple bucks there.
For sure. And especially when you're looking at a proposal and like there's lots of different quantities and lots of different calculations and lots of different units of measure. It's easy just to breeze over and be like, wait, why is this like this? One that I wasn't familiar with until I started working with Gordian is it was something's in the millions, right? It's like an MLF or something like that. And I was like, wait, what does that mean? And I had to actually look it up. So look it up, ask your account representative if there's a unit of measure on there that you're like, well, why is the contractor using this? Are they using too much of it or not enough, right?
Yeah. And one other note that you just reminded me of right now that you said that, all of our big notes, it's called Using the CTC. I'm sure you guys have all seen it.
Yep.
The first 6 pages of every book. That also does have an abbreviation chart in there. So if you're ever curious to know, oh, this is a new abbreviation, this is a new one, I haven't seen it before, what's the unit of measure here? You can go to your big note and it'll tell you exactly what it is there. There's also conversion charts on there. Although Gordian Cloud, I don't know if you guys know this, here's a little fun fact for you. Gordian Cloud within each of the proposals has the ability to do any conversion calculation for you. It's on the bottom left-hand side of your CTC. So if you guys haven't seen it, go today, take out some time and check it out, and it will do all of your conversions for you there.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Cynthia.
Sure. Extra demolition tasks. So always double check when you guys are reviewing your line items. A lot of the times where there's an install line item, there's a checkbox for demo. So double check that they're using that, and then not also augmenting a separate line item for demo. Again, it goes back to the double dip. So, but in the big note, the rule is if the item being demolished is attached to another item being removed and can be removed as one item, then that item shall not be priced as a separate demolition task, unless the component alone must be demolished to accomplish the tasks. So, for example, the demolition of pipe includes pipe fittings, unless the fitting must be demolished separately to accomplish the task. Demolition of a wood door includes hinges, hardware, closures, kick plates, etc. So it goes hand in hand with the double dip line common proposal mistake, but just double check for those demo lines. Cool. And another big one that we see very, very commonly is not using the quantity discount modifiers. Those can be additive, those can be deductive. Either way, we should always be reviewing every proposal to make sure that the contractor is using the appropriate modifier so that they get paid out fairly. So whether in each of the proposal reviews, when you open up your proposal within Gordian Cloud, the system does a great job of showing you a little box within each of the rows that says 1 of 3 modifiers was applied, 0 of 3 modifiers was applied. So keep an eye out for those, because if it says 0 out of 3, that's immediately a flag that you need to go into there and review it to make sure that they did use the modifier if it's appropriate. Again, it can be additive, it can be deductive. Usually the deductive ones are the ones that we see erroneously get omitted, right? So let's go in and double check that they are getting all of those modifiers inclusive. Cool. This is a cheat sheet that I created years ago that includes all of the 8 steps, and it has a couple of more on here, such as like including waste, the means and methods rules, using rental equipment. So this is just a quick cheat sheet if you guys want to have on hand as you're reviewing your proposal. I'll send it over to Jeremy for you guys to have. This is a PDF that you guys can keep at your desk as you guys are reviewing proposals. Open it up, review it, and have it handy. Is there any questions though?
This common proposal mistakes you've given to me before, and actually I had it printed out on my desk. So I actually welcome it because I don't know what I did with it, but there's some great things in here. It's if you look at number 8 real quick, and that's including those quantities in the DSOW. And I know a lot of you know this analogy that I always say, but in the DSOW, really get into the nitty gritty of what you're expecting of the contractor. Work with the contractor at saying, I need X many of this, I need this many of that, and really dial that in, because in the end, when the project's audited or you're coming back to look at the project and being like, well, where are we going? Well, if you just have a sentence in there that says, hey, we're going to remove these cabinets and replace with other cabinets. What does that really mean, right? I take it back to the Cynthia, the cookie, and Tamiko, the cookie analogy, right? Like if you're not specific with what kind of ingredients you want in your chocolate chip cookies, you might end up with a cookie that you don't like. Everybody likes different kinds of cookies, but if you think about being very specific in your detailed scope of work and putting the time in there, it's going to make it easier for the contractor to get into the CTC and choose items that you want on your project, right? That you specifically stated in the DSOW that you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, to just also add on to what Jeremy said on that cookie analogy, because I love it so stinking much, right? You want to make sure you end up with a chocolate chip cookie and not an oatmeal raisin because you're using the wrong ingredients. And you definitely don't want to end up with a cake because you're using the wrong quantities, guys.
Right.
So always double check your recipe to make sure that it's the appropriate one so you end up with what you want in the end. I just emailed that over to you, Jeremy, so that
perfect. And then I'll add it to the materials. But right now, I mean, I think everybody knows eggs are more expensive. Everybody's freaking out about eggs. My wife is even freaking out about eggs right now. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. But I mean, if something's more expensive in the book, make sure the contractor explains why and shows their work, right? I mean, that's another thing, right, Cynthia, that if the price of something is shot up, well, tell us why. Tell us why eggs are more expensive, right? So
Exactly. That's
yep.
exactly correct. Now you know why I love this cookie analogy so much.
We can use it for everything.
If I can jump in real quick, guys.
Sure.
One of the things that I want to empower anybody that's in the system from the owner side to do is to not accept a proposal without notes. The story that Cynthia and Jeremy were just telling, in order for the contractor to tell their story and sell exactly why their proposal is matching the scope of work that you're requesting, they get to do that through the proposal using the note section. So if you don't see notes, there's times when in programs where Gordian manages the proposal reviews, it's an automatic reject. Like if we're not seeing those notes there, no matter how self-explanatory the contractor may think that line item is to the project or to the proposal and to the scope, doesn't matter. They need to get used to the fact that I need to sell this, right? This is a part of the program and a part of the process. So I need to put in there what it is. And the best contractors are not going to argue with you about it. They're going to say, yep, absolutely. And they're just going to do it. It's just part of their process as their proposal building.
Right.
Yep.
And you end up with a real quality cookie or project, depending on the,
exactly.
if you want to go back to the analogy. But again, Cynthia, great presentation. So let's open it up for discussion, not only on the topic we were just talking about, but any other contractor questions, program questions, Gordian Cloud questions. What do you guys have? Anything? Just throw it in the chat or unmute yourself and feel free to ask.
And while we're checking for those questions, as a reminder, this is a condensed version of a more in-depth proposal review training that we can do with you and your team. We can also do this with your contractors and share all of this information with the contractors. We want to make sure that both sides of the house are being as transparent as possible and showing each other, hey, this is what we're reviewing for. So making sure that you guys are following all of these things, right? So we're more than happy to also do this training with your contractors if you feel like, hey, this contractor could use some extra help. So just feel free to reach out.
Awesome. So we do have a question from Sabrina in Northridge. Sabrina, do you want to unmute or do you want me to read your question?
Sure. I just, a thing that comes up often for us is we'll have, say, a small supplemental. So the job's basically done, but, PPM has come back to us and said, we need to replace this thermostat wire here. Please do it in the context of this job because we were replacing the AHUs or something. But the contractors will either come back to us with outrageous pricing, like $32,000 to do 800 linear feet of thermostat wire. Not a joke. Totally got that this week. Or will complain that they really just can't make it work for them using the catalog, so they'll put in 164 man hours for 8 wires, kind of a thing.
Yeah. So we do have a rule in CSU that the contractors cannot refuse work within the general conditions. It's completely at the campus's discretion whether they choose to enforce that or not. We're not in the business of tarnishing our relationship with our contractors. So that's not always the best route to go. I will say, I know that some contractors do struggle because they're smaller organizations, so they may not have the manpower to be able to do it. I would also suggest having a conversation with your internal teams and saying, hey, is there anything else that is going to be necessary in order to complete the scope of this project so that we're not having supplemental after supplemental? But we're happy to have that conversation with you and your contractor. Reach out to your account manager and we can help have that conversation with them and say, hey, man, you can't be charging $32,000 for 800 linear feet. That's not cool, basically.
So Sabrina, we recently had similar, we call them supplemental, but change order. That's really what it is. Issue at the chancellor's office where, we're replacing the north and south entry doors. And I came back to the contractor and said, look, all those tiles are broken. We want to replace all the tiles and new grout, new caulking. and they're like, great. They kept stalling and stalling the supplemental coming in. And guess what? They sent the supplemental in like 2 days before they were going to work. Right. And I get a supplemental with enough cubic yards of grout to fill like 3 cement trucks. And it's literally like, I think it's like 400 square yards of tile. And Kevin and I are like laughing at the supplemental, like, where did you get that from? So I think it's just the old adage of where a contractor sees a change order, or for us, a supplemental, and they see an opportunity to take advantage of the CSU. And we really need to put our foot down and, call them out on it. And if they don't budge, call me, call Cynthia, call Gordian. And again, circling all the way back to the contractor evaluation, when you're talking about supplementals in that evaluation, that's something that our pre-qualification team here at the Chancellor's office is going to look at, right? Because it's a partnership, right? Especially after you start that project, it's a real partnership, and it's a real circle of trust. And if we can't trust them, then what are we going to use them again, right?
Yeah, so, no, absolutely. Absolutely. We ended up having to do it with our physical plant management because I was just like, it has to be done. And it's $2,000 versus $32,000. So that's like an easy switch for us internally, but it was certainly, disappointing and frustrating to sort of just be like, come on, guys, that's outrageous. They literally told Carlos and I that like, oh, we thought there was no price limit for you. And I said, what now? I'm not sure what would make you think that.
Yeah. That's
aren't you balling?
I guess.
How well do we know this contractor, by the way, Sabrina?
I don't think you know them well.
Okay.
They are they will no longer be on our campus after this year. But
see, and this is exactly what happens. I mean, we want to see the contractor make money. Look, that's I get it, and hopefully that's reflected in their bid factor. And if it's not in their bid factor, that's not our fault. That's what you bid. You bid DVB, small business, whatever it is, and that's what you have to stick with. So Sabrina, great question. Thanks for bringing that up. Does anybody else have any other, either horror stories or success stories on their JOC projects they'd like to talk about?
I would like to bring up, you guys.
Hey, John.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, bud.
You guys ever audit these proposals? Because sometimes the delta between the first proposal and the last proposal is a giant amount of money. And then you really look at it. I'll look at right off the bat, I'm going to look at the proposal and say, I'm going through the highest numbers first. The other stuff is so I can work out the bugs later on. But the highest numbers, even numbers, all that kind of stuff. When you go, wow, this is like, I've gone 50% down from your proposal, and I have to jump down through 3, 4, 5, 6 proposals to get to that point. And that's my frustration with it. You go like, we got to that point, but why do we have to take this much effort to get to that point? It's almost like you're going, if I'll pay the stupid number, then by all means, pay me,
John, it's like it's like being on a used car lot, right? With the car salesman, right? Why do we have to start at this number? Why can't we just end up where we're all going to be at? And that's a great question.
Yeah, I'm looking at more of a thing to go is like, I can only hold them accountable for my particular job. I'm not going to pay that amount. I'm going to be that guy. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're going, if they're consistently running everybody through multiple proposals, or the delta from the start to the end is big, then it's time to really start delving into their proposals and see where they're doing this stuff, and just have a little talk with them and say, you can't do this.
Right.
Yeah.
That rational, that's the only problem. Not everybody's like that, but they generally have a little bit of that to whatever level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you alert us to any of those problems you're having with a specific contractor, any of the Gordian account managers or Cynthia can make a note
Sure.
And when we do an annual or quarterly report up to the chancellor's office, we can let them know that we're having that issue, and then maybe even run some data specific to that contractor and their proposal start to finish, right? Is there a pattern? Can we go in with some additional training to that contractor? We can do all of that. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing is, there should be triggers, like say, the delta from the start to the finish is too great. There's too many iterations of that proposal to get to that thing. That should automatically kind of trigger. Once you get past number 3 proposal, you should start saying, hey, okay, well, let's not play this game. Let's get to the chase here. You know, they say we want people to make money. We want you to come back and be happy that you're here.
Right.
But, you know, otherwise we don't want to drag this out and make this foolishness, you know, like I've heard the sob stories. I'm not making any money. I'm going, yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, John. And there's a couple of different points to that. Number one is I would want to review what their adjustment factors is at, because 9 times out of 10, that's where the core issue is. They've bid too low and shot themselves in the foot for the contract year, essentially.
And they're trying to make up that difference.
Exactly. Secondly is I'd be curious to know what the review process is like for the two of you. It sounds like there's a lot of back and forth. But what I would suggest is changing up the methodology of the way that you submit your comments over to the contractor, and instead just going in and making the modifications yourself on the proposal. And then that way it eliminates a couple of steps in the back and forth. Hey, I need you to
I
add.
agree with you on that. I do those things. Obviously, I'm going to sit there on my own and say, here's the actual quantity that you have here, or this is how many hours kind of thing.
Yeah.
Modify that, and then ask them to justify why they wanted the other amount. And
That makes sense.
Go, oh, yeah, you're right.
If there is a lot of back and forth, this is also, I think that you're at the point now where we need to talk to their leadership, to their management, and say, this isn't acceptable. And saying,
Yeah, all those things that we have on the notes to put back, that should be part of the project itself. It's all documented. You're asking them why to justify X, Y, Z.
Right.
Kind of thing. So that's easy enough to audit that and go back and see what the back and forth was on the project. But I'm saying it all, but just generally speaking, for anybody, there should be a little tripwire you hit after you get past the 3rd proposal, and then the delta starts getting to be, from 100,000 goes down to 50,000. Say just arbitrarily like that, you go, okay, well,
there's a problem.
Yeah, that's kind of
there's definitely a problem. And John, 2 to 3 is about it. I mean, because JOC's supposed to go fast, right? Like that's the whole point of having this bay of contractors ready to go. That's the point of having the construction task catalog. It's like we're kind of go. And by having more than 3, and you're talking like a month then that you're going back and forth, or longer with these proposals, and that's too long. So, John, great point. Thanks for bringing that up.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Any more questions? Are we good? We got some great stories and some great questions today, which I absolutely love. Cynthia loves them too. So,
I have a question.
Sure.
As I'm new to the software, I know one of the examples of the common errors that you said that people make was, I think, your first slide regarding adding labor hours, where the hours are already within the task and then they add on additional hours. Do you have an example of that, like a screenshot of where that was done, and so I can see what that looked like?
Absolutely. And Alicia, we can spend some time also going through the more extensive, since you are new to the system and new to reviewing proposals. Let's schedule some time with your account manager as well and go through the in-depth slide deck with you. And because in that slide deck, it does include screenshots of examples of it. So, Fernando, I know you're on the call. If you can make a note to yourself to reach out to Alicia to schedule that.
Hey, Cynthia, what if we do?
We're really working on that. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We could always go back and do one of our deep dives. It's been a while since we've been at Dominguez Hills, so we could actually schedule that.
Absolutely. Actually, I think that would be really. Yeah, I think that would be really great. Actually, especially if you guys are about to kick off contracts. We'll reach out. myself to
Yeah,
schedule.
Alicia, I'll reach out to you too, and we'll schedule a deep dive where we come in. We take one of your conference rooms and just kind of break it all down in about 2.5 hours.
It's more like 3 breaks, but because we want to make sure there's plenty of breaks in there. But it's about 3 hours.
And donuts and breaks.
Great, thank you.
Cool. Awesome. So let's definitely schedule that. So let's take a look at all these JOC huddles, the CM 101, the CMAR training, the collaborative design build. All these trainings are located at CSU Learn Sum Total. If you don't know how to get there, send me a message, and I can for sure direct you over there. But our construction management team in CPDC has got all the learning materials for you there. And if not, you can always reach out to me or anybody on our team for more training. Upcoming training sessions next Friday at 11 a.m. We've got our very first CMAG monthly connection session. Try saying that 5 times fast. So next week, we're going to have staff introductions. There's going to be a fire safety update and much, much more. So please feel free to sign up and join us. We're going to be continuing these the first Friday of the month with all sorts of different topics, and we're going to pull campuses in. So not just JOC. We'll be talking about CMAG. We'll be talking about collaborative design build. But please join us next Friday, March 7th at 11 a.m. Thank you, Carly, for putting the registration link in there. Please join us next Friday. There is a CJE training opportunity. I'm going to hand it over to our very own Southern California. Carly, what are you, the Southern California president of CJE?
Fancy.
I know.
Yes, for the Center for JOC Excellence, and Tamika here on the call is the vice president. So next Wednesday, I believe it is the 12th, we'll be having our first meeting of the year and talking about the new contract laws for California.
So please feel free to join us. So it's not a CSU event, although we do have a lot of campuses attending, but you'll get to meet other public works agencies that use JOC, other contractors, other consultants. We all get to it's like a Knights of the Round Table, right, Tamiko? It's like where we all kind of get to come together and talk about what's working and what's not working in our JOC programs individually. So
I better dust off my Lady Gwendolyn costume then for next week's meeting. So I'm just saying.
Spectacular. Again, thank you to everybody for attending today, and have a great weekend.